Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more of the Great War. Week 57 this time, and I think we're about to get a pretty exciting episode. The Battle of Hill 60 and Lunatic Persistence in Gallipoli. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. Okay. And this is finally going to be an episode that I've been waiting for. For a little bit now. I think it's been a while since we've had something, and a big battle happening. So I think Battle of Hill 60 will do that. Anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and dive right in.
The Allies have tried for 4 months to push the Ottoman forces back at Gallipoli.
God, it's been 4 months already. It really throws when you're watching these week by week episodes twice a week. It really throws off your concept of time.
But in vain. The Ottomans hold all of the high ground and are well dug in. So what
Oh no, not the high ground. Anakin, watch out.
are the British to do? They try exactly the same thing that failed before.
Hell yeah.
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the Germans captured two great Russian fortresses, Kovno and Novo-Georgievsk, taking nearly 100,000 prisoners, several million tins of food, over 1,300 big guns, and over 830,000 artillery shells.
Big old
The
gun.
White Star liner Arabic was torpedoed by the Germans with Americans aboard. The German Navy was
new
beaten
animation.
back at the Gulf of Riga, and at Gallipoli, incompetence reigned among the Allies. I'm going to look far from Europe to start off today, where local action was preventing Indian troops from joining the war where they were most needed. Yep, in Rustam in northwest India, in what is now Pakistan, Bunarwal tribesmen were defeated the 26th by Gurkha troops of the Peshawar division. There had actually been scattered action there throughout the year, but it really heated up in mid-August as the Indian army fought the Mohmans, Bunarwals, and Swati. These three tribes all inhabit the northern Peshawar district and fielded armies as large as 10,000 men. They would tie down the Indian troops for much of the rest of the year. Those troops would certainly come in handy at Gallipoli, for example. 2 weeks ago, the British had landed at Suvla Bay and tried and failed to push the Turks back. They held a line on the Suvla plain with the Turks on the ridges around them. This week saw a final British assault on the 21st, but the Turks were well armed, dug in, and determined. The main objectives were the lowest foothills of the Chunuk-Bair Range, Hill 60 and Scimitar Hill. One of the officers to lead the attack, Sir John Milbank, had won the Victoria Cross during the Boer War after he got his...
See, it said he dies in 1915. I think he's going to die here in Gallipoli. I think we got his character arc spoiled for us.
orders. He went back to his men and said this: "We are to take a redoubt, but I don't know where it is, and I don't think anyone else knows either. But in any case, we're to go ahead." Milbank was killed leading the advance.
Shit.
The attack on Scimitar Hill, actually, was the most costly proportionally and one of the least successful offensives of the whole Gallipoli campaign.
You love to see it.
14,300 Allied troops took part, and it resulted in over 5,000 casualties. The enemy took half of that. It was...
It could have been worse. That actually doesn't sound too bad compared to other numbers we'll see in this war.
As was becoming a habit, a disaster. The artillery bombardment at its beginning was totally inadequate, and the infantry went over the top to be chopped down by Ottoman machine gun fire. Here's something from Captain Guy Nightingale of the 1st Royal Munster Fusiliers, which I found in Peter Hart's The Great War.
Oh no, I just saw like a bug.
At 3 p.m., the battalion shoved off 700 strong. The furthest any got was 500 yards, and none came back from there. They all got mown down by machine gun fire. We lost 9 officers and nearly 400 men. The Turks shelled us, and the whole country caught fire. Many of our wounded were burnt alive. The roar of the flames drowned out the noise of the shrapnel. After the gorse was all burnt, the smoke nearly asphyxiated us. All this time, our battalion was being cut up in the open. The telephone wires finally fused from the heat. A new general was now sent to Suvla, Sir Julian Byng from the Western Front. Byng told General Sir Ian Hamilton, in charge at Gallipoli, that there were not enough high-explosive shells to justify any more offensives. Hamilton deplored Byng's Western Front standards and said that if they were going to be fitted out properly, they'd be waiting until doomsday. The official Gallipoli historian, Brigadier General Aspinall Oglander, had this to say about Byng's arrival. The experienced pilot had arrived, but the ship to be steered into port was already hard on the rocks. And this was pretty much true. The Gallipoli campaign was basically just, waiting for the fat lady to sing, as the British mounted debacle after debacle. Thing is, Hill 60 and Scimitar Hill were sensible tactical objectives in general, since they would give a good position for a future offensive in the rather unlikely event that tens of thousands of new troops arrived to carry out a new offensive. But the desirability of two limited objectives is not a good reason to launch attacks that have virtually no chance of success and just lead to heavy casualties. Peter Hart, once again, had this to say in his book Gallipoli. These were pointless attacks, and if they typified any British trait, it was a lunatic persistence in the face of the obvious. The persistence of the Germans, however, was anything but lunatic as they continued to advance on the Eastern Front. The Russian retreat was becoming almost monotonous. This week they lost
a full-blown rout at this point, I'd say.
Both Osowiec on the 22nd and Brest-Litovsk on the 25th to the advancing German Colossus. I say almost monotonous because far to the south, General Brusilov attacked Tarnopol on the 26th, taking 7,000 Austro-Hungarian prisoners. We've talked before about the staggering casualties on the Eastern Front on both sides, where Russia had now lost over 1.5 million men as prisoners to the Central Powers. But there were also huge casualties further south for people that weren't even fighting. I'm talking of the Armenian genocide, which had been going on for months. In fact, on August 19th, Lord James Bryce, who had been the first to speak about the genocide in the House of Lords, reported that 500,000 Armenians had now been killed. On the 26th, 60,000 Armenians in and around Aleppo were ordered to leave for Hauran in the Transjordan. Also this week, all soap, wood, coal, and copper are requisitioned from the homes of deported Armenians. It is forbidden for anyone to purchase the property of deported Armenians, and on August 31st, so 4 days in the future, cheating a little, Talat Pasha, Ottoman Minister of Finance and one of the three pashas that basically ran the empire, told the German ambassador in Constantinople that the Armenian question no longer exists. We haven't looked at
That's fucked up. That's real fucked up to say.
the Western Front yet this week, and we saw a lot of action there in the skies. On August 23rd, a week of air raids began. During the week, the French would bomb Noyon, the Dillingen Ironworks, Dornach Poison Gas Factory, in Artois and in the Argonne, while the British bombed Lens, Henin-Lietard, Loos, and the German camps in Belgium. And there are, of course, scattered notes from the other theaters of war to round out the week. On the 27th, the Italians storm Monte Rombon. That same day, Austro-Hungarian forces attack Montenegro at Grahovo, but are repulsed. At sea, a German destroyer was sunk by a French torpedo boat near Ostend, and a German sub was sunk by British airmen in the same area. And it is announced that British forces, including colonial forces, now total 3,825,000 men. That number is actually just about what the Russian army has been reduced to after the disasters of the past few months.
Damn.
And that's the week. The Russians losing ever more ground to the Germans, the British and French attacking from above, Indian troops securing their frontiers, and another failed Allied offensive at Gallipoli. Here's yet another quote for the week, again from Peter Hart. The traditional analysis of the Anzac and Suvla operations of August 1915 has presented the fighting as a near-run thing, in which the British were only thwarted by a mixture of bad luck, poor command and control at Suvla, and the genius of Mustafa Kemal. This ignores clear evidence that once again, blind optimism had stood in the place of realistic planning. I mean, remember, the objective was removing the Ottoman Empire from the war, right? And it had degenerated into suicidal attempts to take something called Hill 60. And what if the Allies had succeeded and then taken Chunuk Bayer above? What then? Well, they'd have to then take Maltepe, and then bring in enough troops to overrun the huge Turkish defenses on Kilid Bar, which guarded the Narrows. Then the fleet would have to penetrate the Sea of Marmara, which no one had seemingly made plans for. Then the Turkish fleet and the two German battle cruisers there would have to be dealt with. And then they could threaten Constantinople itself, and then And what? The Turks would surrender? What a plan! And by around this time, of the 100,000 or so men on the peninsula, an estimated half were so disease-ridden they were unfit for duty. The troops had lost any faith in the future of the campaign. And yet, there they remained, with no hope of a clear-cut victory, and with Hamilton adamantly refusing to evacuate, and by now, mere survival was the only goal. If you're a frequent viewer of our show, you often hear me quoting great historians like, well, Peter Hart just now, or Martin Gilbert. And a lot of you ask us for book recommendations so you can go more in-depth into World War I. So we came up with something, and we introduce you now to our very own Amazon store. You can click the button below or find the link in the description. This store contains works of both fiction and nonfiction that we either use as resources or we generally recommend because they're great books. And the cool thing is, if you buy one of these books via Amazon, you support our channel financially too, since we get a commission. The links are called affiliate links. And if you'd like to see how this whole...
Okay. That was week 57 of the Great War, Battle of Hill 60, Lunatic Persistence in Gallipoli. This was a good episode, certainly a step up from the previous, I think, few that we've had to watch. I do disagree, though, a bit on what he was kind of saying there about the threat, being able to threaten Constantinople. I feel like that, obviously, the British had not planned that far in advance. But I do feel like if they had managed a breakthrough in the Gallipoli Peninsula and they were able to, one, get their ships into the Sea of Marmara, the British Navy, I think, is large enough, as well as working alongside the French and their other allies, to be capable of dealing with the Turkish fleet and the 2 German battle cruisers there. I think they would have been able to capably handle those. But, and then moving on into the siege of Constantinople, I feel like the 3 pashas, those that are in charge of the Ottoman Empire, I feel like once Constantinople would have been threatened, I think they seem like the kind of people to surrender once put under that kind of strain. They don't seem like the Russians to me, or even the Germans. I feel like both Austria-Hungary and the Ottomans are both the type to surrender the moment their capital becomes even remotely threatened. So, yeah, especially one as important as Constantinople. That is an extremely strategic position, and honestly, the moment that gets taken, I feel like there's no hope for the Ottoman Empire to continue fighting, so they would have just given up. But yeah, that was week 57. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.